I'd like to just introduce our speaker today, Srila Bhaktivedanta Tripurari Maharaj, and a long time associated with our mott, He came in the 80s to Srila Maharaj for advice and counsel, and Srila Guru Maharaj counseled him, make your own mission, and I'll give my support to you from here. And Maharaj did that, and always giving so much honor to Guru Maharaj, and speaking Guru Maharaj's Vedanta very nicely. And we're very happy that now he's come to London to be with his devotees for a few days, and that he wants to come here and see Srila Guru Maharaj's temple here in London. And we want that he will speak some Harikatha for our benefit today.
Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Swami Shri Bhakti Vedanta Prabhupadaya Te Namah Guravagyam Shirasirita Shaktiresha Swarupine Hare Krishna Iti Mantrena Pasvacha Prachatarane Vishvacharya Pravarya Divya Karunya Murtaye Shri Bhagavata Madhurya Gita Jnana Pradayane Gaurashi Rupa Siddhanta Saraswati Nishebine Radha Krishna Param Bhoja Vringaya Gurave Namaha Devam Divyatanum Suchanda Varanam Balarka Chelanchitam Sandrananda Puram Sadeka Varanam Vairagya Vittam Buddhim Isirantanidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Varam Bandetam Subhadam Hareka Sharanam Yashishwaram Siddharam Bande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Buddhadai Pushpavanto Chitto Sando Tamono Vandeham Shri Ramakrishna Abhaya Charano Sako Sukado Paramanando Sundaro Subala Priyo He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchan Gourangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Shri Gauri Vaishnava Guru Parampara Ki Jai Shri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat Ki Jai Shri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat London Chapter Ki Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanande. Very nice to be with all of you. And I'll speak a little bit this afternoon from my recently published book entitled Circle of Friends. I've been spending most of my time. I was very kind of outgoing in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, very much involved in widely circulating Prabhupada's books. And there's another side to me, however, that was brought out by Guru Maharaj, which is rather inverted. And with his good counsel, I turned in that direction. Guru Maharaj asked me involved in bringing in new people to the mission, which is a virtuous engagement. He asked me to do what he called relief work. So that no one would go out the back door, or if anyone had, they might come back in and understand a little better the depth and virtue of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, philosophy, ideal, and so on and so forth. So, given that request of Guru Maharaj, I turned my attention to what Prabhupada referred to a few times in his mission as the boiling of the milk. But a couple of times he told us that we have enough devotees now, we should boil the milk. Of course, it will overflow the pot in due course, but rather than be preoccupied with bringing in new people and creative ways to try to attract their attention. Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai. Bhakti Parivar ki jai. To do relief work, I felt it was required to go a little more in depth into, well, to boil the milk, into the teaching, if you will. And so I spent most of my time writing books. This is my latest book. It deals with a subject that's very, very dear to me, and about which there is considerable lack of understanding in the Gaudiya Sampradaya overall. And it just happens to be a subject or a topic, just happens to correspond with the ideal of Om Vishnupad, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, that was known to some of us, his disciples, the ideal of fraternal love, without being able to make a case for it, if you will, based on Shastra Yukti, or reasoning on the basis of the scripture, and giving evidences and so on and so forth. It was just a feeling that we had from things that he said here and there and so on, at a time when, well, he was the only person who was representing visibly Gaudiya Vaishnavism around the world and so forth. But it was very compelling to sit on the veranda of Guru Maharaj and hear him one day out of the blue explain his own conviction in this regard about his dear godbrother, and give so much Shastra Yukti, scriptural support, scriptural reasoning, and so forth, and to see that he had memorized Prabhupada's poem on the Jal, the pertinent slokas. Tomar Milane by Abaraseshu Din Korta Bani Chuta Chuti Vanikai Lutuputi Shedin. Well, they held them more. Statements like this. Prabhupada's poem was kind of divided into two sections, really. First section is all about Sharanagati. And it's a good example of what Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada used to say. First deserve, then desire. So if you want the drama of Krishna Lila to appear in your heart, you have to turn your heart into the dramatic stage of Sharanagati. And so this is the culmination, really, of sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti orientation is supplication, and the desire and intention to increase one's shraddha, and the outer expression of which is Sharanagati. This is the stage that Krishna builds in the Gita. Sarvadharman pratyaja maham ekam sharanam braja. shopping mall. At least in America, that probably here too, they have a map. If you want to go to room 108, door 108, you go to the map and it says 108 is here. What else does it say? And you are here. You have to know both things. You have to really know where you are. This is adhikar, to know your adhikar. This is real, true beauty, Bhagavatam says. Bhakti Vinod played it in this way, the verse from 11th canto of Bhagavatam. No one's adhikar, that is real beauty. To know your place. To know your place and to know what you need to do then to go from here to room 108. But you got to know where the room is, something about it, right? If you want to have the candle of bhava lit in your heart, and then protect it from any flame of pride that might come, that because you'll be attractive to others. First, you have to put the candle there. Right? Then you can light it. You rather light without the candle, what is the value of that? Right? So this is a strong, of course, emphasis of our Bhakti Vinod Paribar, as Bhakti Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada used to refer to us all. You come in the Paribar of Bhakti Vinod. When he was asked by his disciples, who had been out in the market and been asked by others, what Paribar are you connected with? Looking at your tilak, I can't determine. Are you in the Nityananda Paribar? Are you in the Advaita Paribar? Gadadhara Paribar? What did Saraswati Thakur tell them to say? Tell them Bhakti Vinod Paribar. What is your tilak? It's Urdhva Pundra. That's all. As advocated in Hari Bhakti Vilas. All these details. If you don't have the right tilak or the right color cloth, you can't go to. Don't think like that. That is Bharabahi. We need Saragrahi thinking, right? In our line, coming from Bhakti Vinod Thakur. All the criticisms of it, they're all about this. Conflating details with principles. Letting the form, to use the term of Guru Maharaj, get the upper hand over the substance. So, something to speak today about the ideal of Prabhupada, the Guru Maharaj so beautifully brought out, which he, my Guru Maharaj, I've got two of them, so it's complicated, many of us do, which he brought out in the second half of his poem. The first half of his poem is all, this is the way the poem came out, right? First half, it's all properly understood, it's about Sharanagati. In the second half, then Bhava is characterized, Bhava Bhakti, I said Sadhana Bhakti is characterized by seeking supplication, surrender, cultivating surrender, building the stage of Sharanagati. And Bhava Bhakti is characterized by longing. Longing. If we're longing, they have a mango, you have to dig a hole, you have to plant it. Right? You're longing to go to India, well, you have to have a passport. You got a passport? You have a job? You have money? No, I just want to go to India. Well, that's not very useful. Preoccupation. You have to preoccupied with that, which will make that possible, right? So this is what he meant, Saraswati Thakur, when he said, first deserve, then desire. Cultivate Sharanagati. Know about these things to some extent from good authorities. Understand the tattva that underlies this whole idea of Bhakti Rasa, these trans-psychological reality. And so in the second half of Prabhupada's poem, you find his longing. Guru Maharaj brought this out so beautifully. As I said, to sit on his veranda and hear him say, and Swami Maharaj, Sakirasa. He said, Tomaro melane bhaya barasheshu papai. Gocharani, just listen to the word, this is Bengali. Gocharani guri din bo. Kottavani chutta chuti, vani khai lutaputi, se din kobe hobe more. The very sound of the words he chose, they are so playful. Kottavani chut, from throughout the bonds. Chutta chuti, somersaulting, as Guru Maharaj translated, rolling on the ground playfully. Se din kobe hobe more. Se din. That day, kobe hobe, when it will become mine, and kobe hobe more. Hmm? What a window, right, into the life of a Param Bhakta. Hmm? Hmm. You can understand, oh, his Sankirtan. What is Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami say? That hmm, um, that without Shakti, one cannot properly perform Nam Sankirtan. He's talking about Bhava. Hmm. That campaign, wide and far-reaching as it was, has its uh, 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 origins in a depth of internal feeling and for an acquaintance with what it's really all about, which is, of course, something Guru Maharaj used to emphasize to us. He would ask, what is Krishna consciousness? Just checking us out, what we had understood and so forth. And he liked to give a little bit of emphasis on the ideal. And that there are different ideals is a beautiful thing. Very much accommodated in our paribar. We can look at the works of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that, for example. But these are the two ideals that are prominent, Sakya Rasa and Madhurya Rasa. And Madhurya Rasa is the prominent rasa, and Sakya Rasa plays a supporting role in the drama, even as each one is perfect in and of themselves. And they are the only two in Braj that are compatible with one another. But Vatsalya Rasa is the enemy of Madhurya Rasa and Sakya Rasa. It will cause Sakya Rasa to contract in its presence. If you are friends, but you, in the presence of your elders, well, you have to behave properly. You have your ability to interact freely in the way friends do, unchaperoned, so forth, will be contracted. And of course, in the presence of Vatsalya Rasa elders, then adolescent love will also contract, right? But without that enemy of Madhurya, of Vatsalya Rasa, how can there be Parakya? So these are words, enemy, friend, with regard to rasas. In Braj, it's a composite, right? Now, I'm going to read a little bit and I'll speak a little bit from a verse of Bhagavatam that's pertinent to the topic. But as I mentioned, hearing Guru Maharaj play out, if you will, all the thinking that he had done about Prabhupada, why he established Krishna Balaram deities, Gaur-Nitai deities in different places, what family he was born in, how the patron saint of his family was Udaran Datta Thakur, the right-hand man of Nityananda Prabhu from the Saptagram area, so on and so forth, so many things. And of course, he knew Prabhupada very, very intimately. Prabhupada provided an apartment for him, as you know, for 6 years after the passing of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And they wrote their Bhagavad Gita commentaries together. Oh, to meet him, Guru Maharaj, after the departure of Prabhupada, after the setting of the sun of his campaign, and the pain that came from that, the state of affairs, with regard to the state of affairs, in the mission took such a turn, then to come with the kind of the rising of the soothing moon of Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and the way he would answer the questions, it would make you forget the questions that you asked, where he would take you. What a good fortune. You could not find, I say to you as a disciple of A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Prabhupada, a better Siksha Guru in all the worlds, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj. So to hear him speak such beautiful things, deep things, in a very tasteful way. One of my godbrothers asked me, he had been in touch with a sadhu from Gaudiya Math. I'd call him an older cousin of mine, and he was speaking about higher topics, let's say. And this godbrother of mine was passing on what he had heard from this devotee to others, but it was causing some problems, he said. It was being misunderstood. So he asked me, he said, you had association of Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj. So how did he talk about higher topics in such a way that they didn't get misunderstood? I said, well, one thing about Guru Maharaj is that he spoke about lower topics in the highest way. That was one of his characteristics. And he very tastefully, of course, talked about higher topics also. Just to dot the I and cross the T, put an exclamation mark at the end of the sentence. Such a excellent representative Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So it was to our surprise, and you can imagine what a letdown it was to hear that from across the Ganga in that significant and important Chandrodaya Mandir, where out of which Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prophecy that the day will come when people from all the nations of the world, major nations of the world, will chant on the street here. The Bhaktisiddhanta Marg goes right by ISKCON Chandrodaya Mandir. Chant Jai Sachinandan, Jai Sachinandan, Jai Sachinandan. I was fortunate to be on that street, chanting, taking part in the fulfillment of that prophecy. It was early on in ISKCON Mayapur days. And we would do Sankirtan and chant Jai Sachinandan down the street, and the ladies would come from the village with a plate of sweets and place them on the street. The husband would sweep in front. They would make an offering to the Sankirtan party. So to hear from those quarters, from that place that had such an important role, this kind of thing, it's almost unmentionable, but tell the story, I have to. They said, well, they thought, no, he's criticizing Prabhupada. He's only in Sakirasa. And he's in Madhurya Rasa. When Guru Maharaj heard this, he was like, what? He thought, what do they think it is? Do they think it is a bad thing? He just it couldn't be it didn't compute within his mind and heart. He said, they think it is a bad thing. He said, I thought it was rather a compliment. I brought Prabhupada's poem, famous poem, promoted Puri Goswami Maharaj once, and I read it to him. He said, oh, Sakirasa. And I said, yes. I said, Maharaj, some people say foolishly that if your Guru Maharaj is not in Madhurya Rasa and this is your ideal, then you've got a problem. He said, Baba, if your Guru Maharaj is in Sakirasa and you think you've got a problem, then you've got a problem. You don't get it. So Guru Maharaj was kind of shaken by that. I mean, you couldn't have paid a better compliment in a sense, and giving the support that he did with his reasoning and so on. It wasn't on a campaign about it. I mean, it just happened to come up in the context of those wonderful talks and the foolish questions, many of them on our part, at his lotus feet. So, having introduced this topic, with that, let me read a few words about what Sakirasa is. As Sukadeva Goswami, in his Budding Gopi Bhav, in this section of the Bhagavatam, speaks about it, after which he concludes with a verse that I want to focus on. A little long-winded on the topic. I hope. How much time do we have? Ready? Okay, I have to go a little quickly then. I'll just read a little bit. This is from the Sakirasa Center of the Bhagavatam. It says there's a Madhurya Rasa Center, the Ras Panchanjaya, the 5 chapters. There's a Vatsalya Rasa Center centered around the friends simple rice, chapati, sabji. Such was their playful love in union that gave way to love in separation, when Krishna was drawn by the beauty and mystery of the forest to venture unaccompanied, having sent his sakas to search for their calves. The boys' hearts, grown fonder by the fuel of such separation, drove the vehicles of their bodies in a race first. No, I will touch him first. And together they all touched him, each first, in his own mind, each proudly and appropriately claiming victory, proud to give pleasure to Krishna as their union triumphed over separation, such is Sakya Prem, pure, yet, I should say proud, yet pure. They play their flutes to indicate one thing and then suddenly another. Wisdom, the cowards alone, capable of grasping their intentions. Some blew their horns, such as the sound made Krishna laugh, while others considered their horns and flutes inharmonious with the natural sounds of the forest, the sounds of the birds, the bees, and the crickets. Thus the boys imitated these natural sounds themselves. In this way, with all of their sounds together, both natural and unnatural, they created a supernatural concert, not only pleasing to the ear, but profound, resolving all philosophical conundrums. Some boys reasoned that it is speed, first and foremost, for which cowherds are praised, and thus they chased and magically appeared to catch their own shadows. Others imitated the gracefulness of the swans, the songs of the cranes, the dancing of the peacocks, thinking themselves high-minded, their games superior to the shadow-chasing antics of their friends. Seeking to outdo everyone else, others climbed high in the trees and imitated the monkeys, declaring themselves to be the best of yogis, moving about dexterously without ever touching the ground. However, others made similar claims of levitation while chanting Omkar in imitation of the croaking of the frogs and leaping along with them. Joining the competition, others chanted Narayana into the hollow of caves in reciprocation with their echoes, while others, upon Krishna's suggestion, simply looked at their own reflections in the water in mockery of self-worship, or ahangopasana. In the midst of such amusement, the youngest boys served Krishna personally, as he relished these astonishing antics of the other skillful and playful cowards. Indeed, Shukadev was not exaggerating when he exclaimed in awe that the magic of Maya, the gnosis of Gyanis, and the yoga of yogis, and the bhakti of bhaktas, such as those of Vaikuntha, are all surpassed by such Sakha's brain. Thus, he was puzzled as to how these boys attained a measure of love that turns God into a cowherd, an equal. It is to such sages that I offer such a bold book and as an answer, seeking their approval and blessing, if not by karma, gyan, yoga, or vaidhi bhakti, it must be by mercy alone, Mahat Kripa, that these cowards attain such a good fortune. So says Tirupa. So the verse here, that this description, which there are about 500 pages of in the book, along with many chapters about the tattva, philosophy, and theology that underlies such an ideal. The verse is a famous verse. Itam satam brahmasukana bhutya dasyam gatanam paradaivatena mayashritena naradarakena sakam bijaru kritapunya punja. It's a verse that, aesthetically speaking, is what Jiva Goswami has called ras ulas, because it has conflicting rasas in it that don't conflict. It's just an interesting poetic feat, if you will. In the words, to begin with, Sukadev says, Itam satam brahmasukana bhutya. Brahmasuka Anubhutya, that there are gyanis, and their ideal is Brahmasukha, bliss of Brahman. Their ideal is not to taste bliss, but to be bliss. Brahman is indeterminate, nirvishesh, no qualities, there's no other. It's a feature of the absolute. This is a unique perspective that we find in Gaudiya Vaishnavas that we won't find in other sampradayas like Ramanuja or Madhva, for example, preceded the Gaudiya school. For example, Jiva Goswami's Sandarbhas, the Bhagavad and Paramatma Sandarbhas, 2 of the 6, are based on one verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. They're an explanation of one verse, famous verse of Bhagavatam. You may know it. Vadanti tat vidas tatvaya jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabdite. You know it? Anyone? Important verse. Two whole sandarbhas coming out of that. He says what? That the Tattvavidas, the learned people, the wise people, they say that the ultimate reality is Advaigyan Tattva, non-dual consciousness, known variously as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. It's very interesting. It's non-dual reality, but there are three in one, 3 different faces of the Absolute. Now, outside of Gaudiya Sampradaya, like for example, let's say for Ramanuja, who Jiva Goswami draws from considerably, he looks at this verse and says, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, these are different names of God. These are different names for referring to the Absolute, that's all. But our Gaudiya Sampradaya says, that's true, but there's more to the picture here. These are 3 different faces of the Absolute, and they correspond with 3 different paths to the Absolute, which, while having much in common, are nonetheless different. Yes, it's true. In Italy, all roads lead to Rome, but they don't lead to the same address, big city. So transcendence is of a variegated nature. Forms of God are asankhya, uncountable. Different faces. And these are 3 principal faces that correspond with 3 principal paths in the pursuit of transcendence. Bhagavan, Paramatma, yoga, and Brahman, Gyan. Notably, of course, Gyan and yoga are to the point, for example, of being able to discriminate between matter and spirit, the higher end, right, of sattvic intelligence. But because they're governed by sattva, they don't have the power to deliver one unto themselves into the nirgun, whether it be the face of Paramatma or Brahman, the faceless form or expression of the Absolute. Therefore, they need a little bhakti for them to be efficacious. Bhakti may take on a sattvika form for the sake of facilitating those who want Brahmasauja. In Ramanuja Sampradaya, there is no such thing as merging in Brahman. They don't acknowledge it. Gaudiyas are a little more generous to Shankar. They say, yeah, there's something like that. The individual soul isn't extinguished, but it could merge to an extent that it doesn't know that it's an individual anymore. But its full nature won't come out. That stage, that status, that standing in Brahmasukha, that they will stand in the Ganga, in the month of Magh, in the Himalayas, up to their neck in the midnight cold, to say there's no difference between cold or the hot that I experience when I surround myself in May with fire. These austere practices, very, very difficult. Oh, the life of a jnani is makes the heart hard. Therefore, we say, better you loved imperfectly than to have not loved at all. Karma is better than Gyan from the Gaudiya point of view. This is so, what? Gyan is the path for liberation. Karma is the path for bondage. Yes, but if our ideal is Brahmasukha only, oh, you will never love. Well, you might love. Because it's a form of liberation that Bhakti Vinod Thakur says is indistinct. Sanatana Prabhu says the same as Rupa does also in their texts, Priyat Bhagavatamrita and Bhakti Rasamrita, respectively. It's indistinct. You may know I'm an Atma. You may know that I'm like Brahman. So like Brahman that I identify with it in a kind of a radical way, but I don't know that I'm also Haridas. Self-realization is God realization. That doesn't mean that you're God. It means that the self is a servant of God. Jivera Swarup Hoy, what is it? Nitya Krishna Das. Right? This is his position. Our position. So, I mean, of course, how will you get out of Brahman? A friend, nice person, was inspired by a jnani with about topics like reincarnation and karma yoga, and so got into Hinduism, spiritual path, and so on. And then, of course, later on, met devotees and embraced Gaudiya Vaishnavism. But naturally, she had a affection for that person who helped her, right? Whose teaching of radical, let's say, non-dualism, she then put aside, right? But she still had some affinity. I said, the more you become a devotee, the more you endear yourself to Krishna. Those who are dear to you, for whatever reason, like that sadhu, who's merged in Brahman, Krishna will bring him out. He'll bring him out. Bring him to at least Shantarasa, Dasarasa. This is all explained in the texts. I mean, the fact that there's a possibility of being merged with Brahman by Krishna's grace, those Atmas can come out and realize that they are servants of Hari, a particular type of servant of Hari. So Brahmasukham, it's a big, big thing in most people's eyes. You have to understand that if you're in negative numbers, -1, -2, -3, -4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 108, and you come to 0, you've really gone somewhere. You've gone to, I was in negative numbers. I work, so I owe, so off to work I go. This is the karmic wheel, right? You've taken, now you owe. You've taken, now you owe. You're chasing your own tail, right? This is karma. I owe, so off to work I go, right? We are hunters and hunted. You look one way, you're a hunter. Look over your shoulder, you're being hunted by your own hunting, right? The plane of exploitation, karma, bondage, negative numbers. It looks like you got something. You bought the house. When originally we bought the house here for Guru Maharaj's mat, Guru Maharaj was worried. So much money because there was a mortgage. It's not a custom in India. You build a temple and you have a mortgage. So for the perpetuity of the mat, Guru Maharaj was concerned that you need to pay that mortgage off, I think. It wasn't, he had some apprehension about that. He asked me to help in that regard. That's how I met our host and Dayanidhi and some others who and I hosted at that time in San Francisco to help raise money to pay for that original building. So it's true. You bought a house. You think, well, I got a house, but you sign on the dotted line and you all bought it for 100,000, and you owe, for 30 years you owe $1 million. So this is the karmic marg, right? If you come from there, 0, It's huge. You can understand why people might just go, ah, there are no more questions to be asked. Everything's answered. Hmm? But Mahaprabhu asked the question, are there any positive numbers? What? Is there anything more to do? I'm resting now. I was on a treadmill for so long, chasing my own tail. Now I'm resting. And Bhakti, you're talking about doing something? Hmm? And that there are positive numbers? And how positive? That's what this verse is about. Not only that there are positive numbers, he says, Itam satam brahmasukhanamutya. There are persons who have this ideal of realizing Brahman, this feature of the Absolute. And it's done with great effort and endeavor. And it's because it has such overtly, the effort is apparent. It's a, in Bhakti we make effort too. What is the difference between the path of Bhakti and the path of Jnana and Yoga, which are also in pursuit of transcendence with regard to effort? What is the difference? We say avaroha pantha. Ours is a descending path. What does it mean? There's no effort? No, it means our effort is an effort to get grace. That's our effort. This is our effort. This is our effort. We put on tilak. Can you see me? Can you see me? I'm here. Help. Help. This is the effort. Effort to get grace. And there's someone that's very graceful. What did Uddhava say? And he's so learned. He said, Aho Bakiyam Stanakalakutam. Who? This is Uddhava. He's Shastravid. He's Krishna's counselor in Dwarka. He said when he came to Vrindavan, he said, who in their right mind would take shelter of anyone other than Krishna? Aho Bakiyam Stanakalakutam. There was a lady. She dressed herself like a devotee, like a mother, with an evil intention. He ignored her intention and gave her a form of vatsalya. Said, who in the right mind would take shelter of anybody else? Uddhava says in another place, nice in Bhagavatam, in 11th canto, he said, our renunciation is to wear the vestments of Krishna, the hand-me-downs. Krishna is in his royal princely Leela in Dwarka, right? So sometimes he gets tired of an outfit, it's retired. And Uddhava wears that. What's he talking about? This is our renunciation. We'll wear the vestments of Krishna. We are his servants. We're living on his leftovers. We call it prashadam. The clothes, and we won't have anything of our own. Our whole identity is that we are his. And if we're to be dressed nicely, it will come from his clothes. So this is our renunciation. It means we want to uproot the enjoying spirit. This is what Saraswati Thakur called humility. The absence of the enjoying spirit. Enjoying spirit, this is perpetuating material existence, right? The taking, we spoke about earlier, perpetuating it. So how will we end it? But not take. Not easy. You can say the Buddha's path was easy. All he did was sit down. That's all. Found a nice tree, he sat down. Sounds easy, but it's not so easy to sit down, is it? Because we have a trajectory for eons of taking and a momentum, right? To stop that, to go against the current of our trajectory for lifetimes, easier said than done, right? Not only is it hard to do, and effort-based, like Gyan and Yoga, I mean, these are very overtly, they overtly appear more spiritual than the devotee's path. Therefore, it's difficult to understand the Vaishnava. It may look like a Pundarik Vidyanidhi, for example. In Gaur Leela, they look like a fop, like an enjoyer, entirely. We're shopping, we're buying buildings, right? Guru Maharaj would be so pleased with this, how this turned out here. And this is only one, it's two, right? Mosques that we have here. The idea that he would have a mosque in London. He'd probably have a mortgage, but oh, let's see. Goodness. So difficult. Not only difficult, but if you want to stop from taking, that is only part of loving, whereas loving, which is about giving, completely eradicates taking. To stop taking, that will be difficult. You may be able to do it to a point, but it is only half the equation of loving. Loving is giving, and giving is the opposite of taking. So we replace the taking with the giving. We would take the karma and we would dig a hole and we would put it in the ground and we build a temple on top of it. Dance and Sankirtan, it will never come up again. But by Gyan, oh, so many stories of the Bhagavatam. It comes up again. You tried by Gyan, but it came up again. Your past came resurfaced, right? Not only is Bhakti more comprehensive in this regard, in other words, to be a servant is the way to overcome being an enjoyer. Therefore, his renunciation would wear the clothes of Krishna. Not only is it a better strategy, but it's easier. It's easier to wear the vestments of Krishna and honor Krishna Prasad than fasting and adopting other extremes, walking naked in the Himalayas and so on and so forth. But those things look big and important. When a naked sadhu comes out of the Himalayas with dreadlocks and so forth, people think, ooh, some kind of god has come here, some mystical person, sadhu, realized person. I remember one of them chased one of my blonde-haired disciples in Vrindavan. Poor girl. So, yeah, it's not very comprehensive, but it looks large, it looks big, it looks overtly spiritual. So, itam satam brahmasukhanam, yeah, Sukadeva says, there are people, they are pursuing this, but it's nowhere in comparison to what I'm seeing, what I've just tried to relate to you. It's on the edge of his seat, relating this description of Krishna and his friends. He's on the edge of his seat. He says, Dasyam gatanam paradaivatena. And there are other people who are bhaktas who don't follow the path of Gyan, and they worship the Supreme God, paradaivatena, the Supreme Being. Guru Maharaj called it calculated devotion. It's not a bad thing. You calculate, if I serve Bhagavan as I should, as is my duty, there will be a prospect that I will attain. And there will be negative repercussions that I won't experience. This is called Vaidhi-marg. Unto itself takes us to Vaikuntha. What kind of place is that? What goes on there? It's adhoksaja, just overtly different. Servitors of Narayan, with 4 arms, looking like him, turning into a pigeon, just to sing for him at an appropriate time, turning into a tree to give shape, to give shade. There's shape-shifting, changing forms as may be necessary for service in a particular dasya. Or Shanta is also there. Shanta, the beatific vision, to see him. That's all. Just to gaze upon him. Then to serve him. Dasya bhakti. And in so many different ways. The descriptions of Vaikuntha, they're like completely otherworldly. This is a Hosaja. And what is being described in these leelas, it is what? Aprakrita. What is the difference between adhoksaja and aprakrita? Krishna Leela is aprakrita. It means it's like the material world. It's not a Leela, human Leela. As bhakti is misunderstood in comparison to Gyan and the yoga and the overt, apparent, obvious moving away, if you will, from material life. Similarly, Krishna is difficult to understand. His Nara Leela. I mean, if he was four-handed, it would be a little different, right? Four hands means, well, it must be God. But it's not a Leela, it's human-like Leela. So Sukadev says, there are people who pursue this Vaikuntha, Vaidhi Bhakti. There are people that pursue the Brahman feature. There's a verse that follows this that should be included, but speaks about yogis. Same thing. They pursue yoga, Paramatma. And Maya Shritena Paradarakena, Naradarakena. Sakam Bijavrukita Punya Punja. He says what? He says, and then there are people, he's saying there's Gyan, there's Bhakti, and he said there's karma. Some people see this person who these boys are wrestling with and defeating, who are on equal terms with him, who sometimes they serve him, sometimes he serves them. And how do they refer to him? What Arjun say? Sakya rasa is the only rasa expressed in Bhagavad Gita. He says, what does he say? Hey Krishna, hey Yadava, hey Saketi. Properly understood in context, these are all pejorative names for Krishna, the way he's using them. This is Sakya rasa. It's very beautiful. And you can imagine what other things they call him. Yeah. Right? That is Sakya rasa. It's very beautiful, but it's very difficult to understand. He's saying these people in Vaikuntha, they can't understand this. It makes no sense. When Gopakumar came to Vaikuntha and he said, hey, Gopal, you can't talk like that here. That's not how you deal with Narayan. Very confusing. The whole of Braja Leela, very, very difficult to understand. Right? It's called aprakrita. Whereas Vaikuntha is adhoksha, it's overtly transcendental. I remember years ago when I was in Padmanabh Kshetra in India, the big Padmanabh temple. I happened to go in on a day that was Ekadasi, and they were having like a mini, festival. Every day was a festival, but they had elephants and trumpeters, and they took the Vijay Murti, the chariot around. The temple's a city. It's a city practically, and every 50 feet stop and a concert, drums and bugles and conchas and Brahmins chanting mantras, and then to the next, and then all around this. And I thought, I am in Vaikuntha. I felt it. Prabhupada one day, much earlier in my life, we were giving a lecture in New Dwarka where I grew up. He said, and so you should not think we are in Los Angeles. This is that night I went to sleep, as we did, 30 young men, boys really, on the floor, sleeping bag. I woke up in the middle of the night at the call of nature. I answered the call of nature, and as I went back to take rest, I looked out the window and I saw, oh, Vaikuntha, the whole Vaikuntha world manifest. I stayed up the whole night just pretending I was asleep and wondering if I really experienced that. Prabhupada's words echoing in my mind and heart. What an extraordinary place. Who would want to leave there? And Guru Maharaj said, be careful that you don't get sidelined to Vaikuntha. So this is what Sukadeva is saying. What is this Braja Leela? What is this? He's saying. Some people think of him as the supreme Brahman and they pursue that. Some think of him as the supreme deity. They have a path to pursue that. But some people think he's just an ordinary boy. They don't understand him at all. They're under the influence of Maya. Maya Shritena, Naradadakena. Prabhupada said, not everybody could understand Krishna. What is Krishna Leela? What do we hear in the Bhagavatam? What is a Leela? Is Krishna a historical figure? Did he actually lift Govardhan Hill? How did he do that? You ever think about that? Probably try not to. You want to strengthen your heart with your intellect. that your faith will be well reasoned. These are pretty fantastic stories. It's a hard sell to some people, right? Of course, you don't want to think too much. Once one of my godbrothers told Prabhupada, you said that Nanda Maharaj had 900,000 cows. Prabhupada said, yes. He said, well, I did the calculations, and 900,000 cows can't fit in the area of Vrindavan. And Prabhupada said, you read too much. So there's something for that. But another way to think about this, of course, is what? Samadhi nanusmarata vichestitam. What is this Bhagavatam Leela? Bhagavatam was written as the final work of Vyas, but he wasn't satisfied with it. He felt undone. Nard came on the scene and explained why. Because you have not in no uncertain terms emphasized the efficacy of bhakti. It's there, but you haven't just like come out with a book that's all about it very clearly. So, samadhi nusmarteshti, you are qualified. Sit in samadhi and write it again. So Vyas went into samadhi, meditating on the pastimes of Krishna. Whatever the historical Krishna was, he meditated on him. And then in samadhi, he experienced the lifting of Govardhan Hill and so on and so forth. This is where it is. Christians are very, very concerned about the historical truth of Jesus. This miracle actually happened. They sold it throughout Europe, retired the pagan doctrines and so forth. One miracle to end all miracles, retire all these shamans and so forth. This didn't sell very well in India, where the land of magic and miracles and so on and so forth. But what is the real miracle? What is the real power? Once I was sitting with Prabhupada at a pandal, 50,000 people in that South Indian, Hyderabad. And after the lecture, Prabhupada took questions, and one man asked, Swamiji, have you done any miracles? And Prabhupada said, see this boy, he has given up sex. That is my miracle. And the crowd went, Bhishma. Oh my God. Wow. This is Shastra Yukti. This is Shastra Nipun, these kind of answers, right? This is real scriptural genius. It's not just memorizing some verses, some rote intellectual understanding of the scripture, but real feeling for it. Give those kind of answers. So, yes, so where was I? So, we went to, so some people thought he was an ordinary person. Some people today think he's an ordinary person. We're taught how to see him in light of the Bhagavatam, to enter into the trance and melt the constructs of the. It has been thought for some time in modern society that the basic fundamentals of reality are time and space. But this will be retired. This will be retired, hopefully in your lifetime. I'm a little older than this, maybe not mine, but some of you are younger. Time and space is not the fundamental reality. What is the fundamental reality? The consciousness. Everything. You know anything outside of consciousness? If there was, who would be conscious of it? If matter mattered, independent of consciousness, who would know about it? Who would care? Knowing, caring, feeling. Actually, the subjective component of life is far more real than the objective component. Modern society, modern philosophy, current, prominent doctrine is one in which reductive materialism, try to reduce consciousness, mind, subjective realm to the physical realm. A former being an illusion. Are there colors? Or is that just an illusion? We say there are colors, actually. There are colors. And they correspond with feelings. Sham color, that corresponds with romantic love. Mudite bra, say taridambaraya, as Brahma described him. Yeah. If we want to reduce something, why bother with this? There's a subjective component to life, there's an objective component. Which is more important? You tell me. You can wear a white coat and be a scientist, so forth, but if you find out your daughter was in an accident, immediately you That's where you'll run. You're Vatsalya Bhav. This is what really driving the world. The feelings, love. Love drives the world. Love's not an illusion. Granted, our love is capacity to love is not properly reposed, so we're not getting the full result. It's said that giving is a getting, but sometimes we don't feel like we're getting, even though we're giving. But to give and give fully, you have to have an object that can take fully. That is Krishna. That is the meaning of Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swaya. He can take. And what happens when he takes? It's given everywhere, like the stomach takes. If the tongue revolts and says, "Oh, why don't I keep it?" Well, that will be a problem. Because it doesn't have the capacity to transform it and energize the entirety of the body like the stomach does. Krishna is the root of the tree, right? That needs to be watered for the whole tree to be nourished. If we wanted to, okay, you want to enter the debate about reducing consciousness to matter, our position would be, let us reduce matter to consciousness. Idealism, super idealism, not limited to Berkeley's individual idealism, that if you didn't think about it, it's not there. No, it's there. It's all the mind of God. It's all in his mind. Rumarsh was fond of this subjective evolution of consciousness. You can feel his perspective on idealism. Idealism. Consciousness is the fundamental reality. It's the theater of experience. And we are tuned into channel in our material life, in our biological, psychological composite that we think is ourselves. Somebody asked me the other day that, you speak about Krishna as a person and loving him, and I'm devotee, and I'm involved in this bhakti, but it's not like, so what to do? I said, first, you have to become a person. That's what we teach. First, you become a person. Now you're not. What you think you are is a false person. You understand? False person. The biological, psychological composite, that's not who you are. You're a person in a much deeper sense. But that is a false person. And what's the proof that it's false? It's here today. What? It will be gone tomorrow. Dust in the wind. Famous song from my time. All we are is dust. There was some truth to that. Dust in the wind. There's more to it. But as far as our sense of self at present, that has to be just deconstructed. Let the real self come out. This is what Bhakti is doing. Bhakti, if you want to decorate your house, you hire an interior decorator. He's going to come in and say, "Okay, throw that rug out. Get rid of that chair." I hired you to decorate my house, not to take it apart. He says, "No, first we take it apart, throw all the stuff. Then the decorating comes in. Cheto, darpana, marjanam." So Bhakti will do the cleansing, and then she will do the decorating also. Difficult to understand this Bhakti. Point Sukadeva is making here. The Jnani, ordinary people miss it. But Sukadeva didn't miss it. And what he's trying to say about it, he's trying to answer Guru Maharaj's question. What do they think? It is a bad thing? Sakirasa? What is it? He says, this is a thing. Sukadeva says, oh my God, he says, what have they done? These people who are frolicking in this way with Krishna, what have they done? For how long? In so many holy places, over so many lifetimes. Prita punya punja, punja. How many times, Prita, have they, with a determined effort, engaged in punya? And what kind of punya? What is the sadhana for this? We know what is the sadhana for merging with Brahman. We know what is the sadhana of Vaidhi Bhakti. But this thing, how do How did they get here? He's saying the path to this is a secret of the Bhagavatam. It's a secret. This path, this secret has been opened for us by Krishna, right? By Rup, Sanatan, Jiva. I'll try to bring it to a close. Forgive me. This is Rag Bhakti. What is that punya? Punya means pious. So what we do some pious activity. What do we feed the poor? Plant trees. Will that get us there? No, this is not what punya means here. Punya means sacred. It also means beautiful. Sukadeva says, what kind of beautiful activities did they perform to attain whatever this is? But he leaves it to Sukadeva and to our acharyas who took the lead. Nard said to Vyas, write a book that's exclusively about bhakti. He did, but even that book can be misunderstood. The Goswami said, let us take from the Bhagavatam, that is our central text, and write volumes of books about what the Bhagavatam is saying and play it all out so that nobody can misunderstand. What is the efficacy of bhakti? They may take advantage of it. And a particular kind of bhakti that can enter it, will bring us into this kind of Braja Leela. So what are those punya activities? That means these activities of bhakti. Let me give you an example of what they are. The tapa, the punya, in heaps and stockpiles, this verse says. What is it that they did? My Guru Maharaj, he was living in Vrindavan. Guru Maharaj told me, Swami Maharaj came to me and asked for sannyas. But I thought, if I give him sannyas, his whole family will come here to my mouth and cause a disturbance. He probably had like 5 children. And then, of course, his wife, and he was supporting them. So he said, if I give him sannyas, I thought, and I know their family intimately, they'll come here, they'll protest. And also, he wanted to take sannyas, but I thought, maybe, don't be impetuous. And he said, well, he couldn't wait. He went to Keshav Maharaj. And Prabhupada as a beggar, then became a beggar, right? This is punya. He became a beggar. And he resided in Vrindavan. And I was always inspired here, how he lived in Vrindavan as a beggar. He had one dhoti. Wear it in the day, wash it at night, hang it up, and put it on the next day. And then what did he do living in Vrindavan? He took his lunch from Radha Damodar, and then all the time, magazines, translations of Bhagavatam and so forth, doing this. And then begging for a fare to take the train to Delhi to try to convince somebody with a posted check to print the Bhagavad magazine. I'll pay you later. And the printer said, I knew he wouldn't be able to pay me. There's no interest in this stuff anymore. India's now, becoming a nation state. And every tea shop, all the gentlemen, they're only talking politics. And that was where Prabhupada was going. Selling his back to Godhead in the tea shops. And there we would find a Jehovah's Witness tract. And he would read it. This was a study for Rag Bhakti. To read the Christian tracts. Why? You know how many Indian boys want to go to America? So they would hear about America. Girls are blonde there, whatever. It's a land of milk and honey, rich. Prabhupada was preoccupied with going to America, but what was his motive? It's very difficult to understand. He wanted to go to America, but for what reason? What was he reading? He wasn't people thought about over there. Whatever little information he could get, or a newspaper or something. Read that. That he might go there and then think, and then how to try to take this idea that Sukadeva was saying is blowing my mind. Sukadeva was saying, what is this? How did they get there? to take this Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's idea. Sure, go sit behind a tree and chant 64 rounds, 3 lakhs, whatever it will be. Try it. Good luck. My Guru Maharaj, my God, the Guru Kripa Maharaj asked Prabhupada, I'd like to just sit and do japa. Prabhupada said, sit there at the grass hut here in Mayapur. You sit there. And we'll bring lunch every day. So he said he did it. He was chanting a lakh a day. And lunch would come. And after about 10 days, he found to think, are they going to bring that same halava today? Do we ever get any pakoras around here? And then it got worse. So then he got up and went to Prabhupada and told him, the Prabhupada chuckled and said, so go now out and preach for 10 years, then come back and try again. Come back and try again to sit down. What will it take? How will it be easier to control your mind? To go now and sit under a tree and chant japa all day long? Or to try to figure out how to explain this thing to somebody? I mean, Sukadev himself is short-circuiting on the idea. I mean, it's so extraordinary. So this will have the power to consume your mind. Right? This is the history of that is very, very interesting, but very much centered his mouth on that, as you know, right? Let's worship the Rag Marg. Let's hold it on high. That these kind of friends of Krishna, these gopikas and gopas, they'll bless us. They're saying, "Oh, we're not going to worship Krishna with awe and reverence to attain Vaikuntha. We'll worship Krishna's associates, the Rag Marg, that ideal, and we'll talk about it everywhere. 80% by way of saying what is not. It's not this. It's not that." And that 10, 20% what it is. As I said, Guru Maharaj would tastefully give higher a glimpse into that ideal, a taste. So these times of Prabhupada, what austerity it was for him. And then trying to come to America, and then coming to America and suffering a heart attack and so forth. And somebody had the audacity to say to me in Vrindavan, what is your Guru Maharaj flying on airplanes? Renunciants, they should be doing Madhukari. Then he said, "Can you come with me today? Such and such village is good for Madhukari." You understand? You have no idea what is Madhukari. Madhukari means like a bee. Madhukari. Make the curry, the work to the bee to get honey. So you go from one flower to another. So Madhukari with the sadhu will go out in a village and beg for their meal. Whatever they get, chapati, that's what they have for their meal. That's an austerity. But when you start thinking, that village is really good for Madhukari. You're not doing any Madhukari. Right? Here's Madhukari. Get on a plane. Get dropped off in New York in the winter and live on the street until some acid head, gives you a place to stay for a night. And this is Krita Punya Punja. This is what he did to attain that ideal. This kind of thing. Such a nice example for us. And here, to conclude, this verse, Sukadev also, he's saying, he's in Gopi Bhav. This Gopi Bhav is just starting to manifest. In the Kali Lila, his Swarup will fully manifest, but because of budding Gopi Bhav, Sukadev in Bhagavatam, as explained by Sanatana Prabhu in both his commentary in Bhagavatam and Priyat Bhagavatamrita. He says what? He's saying what? Very nice thing. He's saying, I wish I could do that. He's saying that in Gopi Bhav, you understand? Wish I could do that. Play all day in the open with Krishna. I'm referring back to something, as I said, that's Radharani said in Dan Keli, right? About Subal. Wish I could do that. I make this point only to say, this is not a competition thing. We're not involved in this. All these rasas are beautiful. Which one is perfect? Which one is best? Twice in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj, when he makes the case, objectively speaking, for the virtues of Madhurya, the main show. I mean, Krishna's romantic life, this is what it's about. He quickly says thereafter, but the best rasa is the one that's best for you. Which will be the best for you? That's blueprinted in your Atma. That is Krishna's desire. Sanatana Prabhu explains in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And it will come out when you get a corresponding type of sadhana and sadhusanga. And in our sampradaya, why are we all here? Because the prominent influences are Madhurya and supporting role of Sakya in the person of Nityananda Prabhu. So we're fortunate. We are all influenced by Om Vishnupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We wouldn't be here without him. The idea, as Guru Maharaj said, came in Bhakti Vinod. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave it some shape, and Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj took it all over the world, right? We should be so proud of our Bhakti Vinod Paribar, to be humble members, proud, humble member of such a Paribar. And between these ideals, this is not, Prabhupada was very concerned about this. They would not be talked about, Sakya Rasa, Madhurya Rasa, in a mundane way, being competitive and so forth and so on. They're all part of the composite, if you will, of the window that the Goswamis have given us that to focus on. Krishna finishes his Leela before going to Vrindavan, Mathura, stop and let that replay day after day after day. When all the Leela Stalis have been established and so forth, this is the window of the uppercut Leela that you enter into, and there is Sakya Rasa, Madhurya Rasa. They're very compatible with one another, most compatible. They're assisting. We're fortunate. We have the grace, association, teachings of who Govinda Maharaj said, the Rupa and Raghunath of our lives. He said, as the earlier acharyas sometimes have given a focus in their songs, Rupa and Raghunath, he said, not very much what he said. So we're all part of such a virtuous, glorious family. And these are a few words about one part of that. Shri Gauri Vaishnava Guru Parampara ki Jai, Shri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat ki Jai, London Chapter ki Jai, Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki Jai, Gaur Premanande, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasinudeva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha, Ananta Koti Vaishnavindo ki Jai, Gaur Premanande.
Jai, the Bhaktivedanta Tripurari Maharaj.
Jai.